Alright everyone, we start off today with another 2024 election video specifically about Donald Trump, his virtues, of which there are many, and his failings actually, because sometimes people say that I'm part of Cult 45, I've been brainwashed, etc. Over the years my political views have shifted some, but I've been pretty fucking consistent on most of the core issues there. I've never been a fan of censorship. I've never been a fan of gun control, although back many years ago when I was a liberal, or I thought that I was, because W sucks so bad. I was young, it was youthful indiscretion. I entertained the idea, well, it does sound pretty good. If you ban the scary guns, then children will be more safe. I quickly realized that was a bad idea for a dozen different reasons. Overall, though, my core views haven't changed, and it was against that backdrop that I supported Trump in 2016. It's against that same backdrop that I support him for 2024. Yeah, that includes if he's running from a jail cell, which I think is probably hyperbolic. I realize that the system has completely collapsed at this point, and that all precedent, civically and legally, has been thrown out because Orange Man bad. But I don't know that there's a legal methodology by which they can actually imprison a former president because of the Secret Service entourage that has to attend him everywhere. I'm thinking probably he'd be under house arrest, or it would lead to a constitutional crisis where, yeah, Brandon actually would have to issue a pardon or something like that, which, by the way, Trump can always refuse. Wouldn't that be interesting? Hey, Donald, you're pardoned. Fuck you, Joe. And then he runs anyway. By the way, that would be one hell of a balls of steel moment. Let's get out of the way first, though, something that I talked about in 2016. And people need to be reminded of this. Donald Trump is not a god emperor. Donald Trump, memes aside and my support for Trump aside, if he is reelected, he will continue to be the same reformer he was in 2016. He's not going to usurp the Constitution, kick out all the liberals, tear up the old and burn it down and, destroy everything. He's not going to destroy everything. He's one person who will be chief executive who will probably be obstructed in part by his own party because there are people like Mitt Romney in it. That being said, he will reform things. We already know about how he will do so, and it will be hit or miss, but there will be more hits than misses. The virtue is that that's the best that we've got at the moment, number one. There's nobody else in the field, in my opinion, who matches Trump on either side or of any third party. We don't know who the libertarian candidate will be, but they will be, even if well-meaning, even if intelligent, effectively not viable in the current political atmosphere. It's too polarized at the moment for a third party to really eke anything out. We've got the no-labelers question also up in the air. Trump was the first president since the first term of Ronald Reagan to do a good job. We have, effectively, here's the recent executive history of the presidency in the United States. First term of Ronald Reagan, good. Give him a 5 out of 10. He did a good job. It was morning in America again. By the way, the Gipper was exactly what the nation needed at the time to bring us out of the malaise of the 1970s. He did a good job. Second term Reagan, he appears to have taken the fall, so to speak. I think partially it was due to his cognitive decline, which roughly matches what Biden is at already, halfway through his first term, and it's not getting better. He did a good job. He did okay in his second term. It was tolerable, but he wasn't the same Ronald Reagan by 87 or thereabouts that he was in 1980. We'll be honest about this. You can admire him all you want. I know that there's a worship cult around Ronald Reagan. The man that destroyed the Soviets. The Gipper. The epic one-liners. Well, he was a funny man. He was also hanging out with Bill Cosby a lot. But yes, first term, 5, 6 out of 10. Second term, we'll give him a 3. It wasn't horrific, but it was, compared to his first term, the late 80s sucked compared to the early 80s. Then you have Herbert Walker Bush. He was only elected because he was Ronald Reagan's VP. He did a terrible job. He only got one term for a reason. Puking on the Japanese prime minister wasn't exactly the shining moment in U.S. diplomacy. And then we have Bill Clinton. Herbert Walker, by the way, gets like a 2 out of 10. A couple of saving graces, mostly a fucking loser. Bill Clinton, I'll give him a 3. Again, he was less terrible than maybe Bush-Bama or Bush Daddy. But really, most of the successes of his presidency were coincidental. It was just the rise of the dot-coms and the digital era happened to coincide effectively coincidentally with his presidency existing. So he takes credit for the roaring 90s. The era of the Macarena and Chia Pets. Yeah, I don't have any 90s nostalgia, but there were some cozy things about that era of time. Yeah, playing Super Mario Brothers while listening to the rock station. Pretty cool, of course. And then you have, of course, W, one of the worst presidents that we've ever had. I give him a 1 out of 10, and that's being generous. We've got carpetbagging with Katrina. We've got the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, which were so disastrous. Numerous foreign policy and domestic blunders. A wrecked economy, setting it up for the great collapse that happened with the Great Recession, coinciding with the rise of Obama. Also like a 1 out of 10 presidency, maybe a 1.5. At least there was an attempt to normalize relations with Cuba. And to his credit, Obama did one great thing that alienated large swaths of his own party. He pulled back on the hyper-regulatory attempts towards the energy industry. Effectively, towards the last couple of years of his presidency, Obama was drill baby drill, and not a whole lot of people understand this. He was pro-energy president by the end in order to undercut other foreign factions. Still, overall, his presidency is marred by Fast and Furious, the IRS scandal, AP spying scandal, and things like that, so you can't really give him a good score. He didn't do a good job. Trump gets a 6 out of 10 from me. He was a good, competent president. And of course, Biden so far gets a 0. He's been far worse than Bush-Obama, far worse than Bush Daddy. There's not been another president in living memory who has done as poor a job. FDR comes close, I suppose. You know, when you throw 500,000 people into concentration camps based on their ethnicity, you still get remembered by a bunch of leftoids as being a great president, simply because of World War II. How lucky for FDR, the sad, bitter, cousin-fucking cripple. Anyway, with Donald Trump, here's what to expect. Here are the bad points. When he was the president, he did pass a massive multi-trillion-dollar sweeping stimulus that was not necessary. It was predicated on the necessity of the lockdownerism at the time, which Donald Trump did not enact. It was the state governors that did so. Then he went and he bailed businesses out. Some of the current inflation that we're suffering is not because of Joe Biden's policies. Admittedly, a small proportion is because of Trump. The saving grace is that he was good on economics overall, had bolstered the economy so that it didn't outright collapse. Can you imagine what would have happened if you shut down numerous state economies for several months and Hillary-nomics had been in effect? We'd be in a Great Depression right now. Donald Trump's mere existence saved us from a Great Depression. I strongly believe that. That doesn't mean that the knife didn't cut pretty deep. Of course, we're still on shaky ground now. Donald Trump never should have passed that stimulation because it never should have been necessary in the first place. I can understand the pragmatic, hey, the public is going to literally guillotine me if I don't do this sort of thing, because everyone was panicking like a bunch of chickens, but it was still the wrong decision. It would have been better to stand on principle and say to the public, look, don't worry too much about the whole Wu-flu thing right now. We've got other things going on. No, we're not going to lock down. We're going to keep things open because we're the United States. He should have just claimed there's no federal power given to him to do anything about it. It would have been wrong, but it would have been more pragmatic. The Syrian air base strikes. I was not a fan of doing so. Again, I realize that striking a base that's empty except for some half-licensed Russian mercenaries at the time didn't lead to World War III, but it shouldn't have been done. I opposed almost immediately in Trump's presidency the idea of bringing back CIA black sites. They wanted to bring those back. Those had been ended under Obama. Again, one of the few things Obama did that made sense. The CIA was running a bunch of random locations throughout the United States where it was effectively torturing people. Oh wait, waterboarding is not officially torture under U.S. doctrine, but it is. Being clear, it's a form of torture. It's psychological torture, and the CIA was running them. They were ended, and Trump optioned bringing them back, which he, in the end, didn't do. But I found the suggestion to be appalling at the time. But these are some of the failings of the Trump administration. There were many more successes in his administration. In the face of being obstructed by his own party, not even just the Democrats, for several years, he still managed to reinforce the border. The problem that we're seeing under Biden at the southern border would be twice as bad right now if Trump hadn't acted. It could be better. If we re-elect Trump, he might act a little bit more expeditiously in getting the next round of wall funding. Maybe we can finally have a southern border. Wouldn't that be nice? Like every normal country in the world, we actually give a damn about who enters the country and how they enter. Oh yeah, come on in if you got your paperwork, nobody cares, but could you please not forge across the Rio Grande, potentially drowning in the process and getting swept out to sea? Probably be nice. Why don't you just go the legal route? It does actually exist if you have any merit whatsoever. We can expect more tax relief under a second Trump term. What form that takes, that's more up in the air. It's certainly superior to any of the other economic proposals that I've seen. I'm honestly excited about his free speech platform as well. If he goes through with half of it, Internet Bill of Rights, reform of 230, exactly, by the way, as I for years have suggested it should be reformed, I'd be on cloud nine for content creators. If you create content, and that's even part of your income, you should be begging Trump to be back in goddamn office. That includes people from foreign countries, because many of the sites that you use happen to be based in the U.S., primarily subjugate to U.S. law. A reform of 230 alone would solve half of the problems that we see today on the internet. Why do you think there's so many legal suits right now? Google's getting sued by half the fucking internet at the moment for its monopolism. I think that Donald Trump, in a second term, will be at least another 5 out of 10 term. Now, normally I would say, okay, well, maybe there's someone that's a 7 out of 10, like another JFK or something out there, but there is none. We've got Joe Biden, who's demented, probably dies in office, leaving us Kamala. Re-electing him is goddamn insane. We've got RFK Jr. and Marianne Williamson. That's on the Dem side. They're not viable. Unless Biden were to croak now, neither of them has a chance. We have a couple of third-partyists. We have Cornel West, the self-professed socialist, and it sounds like a good idea. Look at the rest of the GOP field. Other than DeSantis, nobody has a political pulse, and the third-place finisher is currently Mike Pence. Yeah, I think I'll be sticking with the Trump train for 2024. Again, imperfect as he is, Donald Trump scares the establishment to the point where they're willing to throw out 250 years of goddamn civic precedent to try to stop him. He scares his own party, which as a non-Republican I find goddamn hilarious. It would be hilarious to re-elect Donald Trump and this is the biggest, perhaps, selling point, other than the mimetic part and defending internet free speech. The part that gets me the most is that there is nothing that Americans like a heroic story. Okay, this person rose from rags to riches. I realize it's not 100% how Trump operated. He was born into relative wealth to begin with. He just happened to be really good at branding and made a hell of a lot more of it. They like a success story. They also like a fallen hero more than a success story. It's even better if the person eventually falls from grace. What does the American really love? What is effectively the fucking story of America? They get the fuck back up, and they go back to the top again. They revive, almost like a Jesus story. They resurrect themselves. Donald Trump going full Grover Cleveland, coming back with his smug smirk on his face, tweeting out, haha, I won the presidency for a second time, suck it, bitch, would effectively be the ultimate Americana story that you can possibly cobble together. It would stereotypically align with the entire rugged individualism sort of story that has been, with settlers and grandma's rocking chair and star-spangled bullshit and all of that stuff. I have a feeling that that alone could carry him back into the presidency. And I hope that it happens, because right now, the alternative is 4 more years of Biden's dysfunction. That's the alternative. We get Biden's dysfunction, or we get someone who is imperfect, admittedly, but clearly superior, and we get funny tweets back. I think that I would like to take the latter. The lower gas prices would probably help as well. That's about all. Peace out.